Hey, good morning. Welcome to North Point Church. We are so glad to have you. Pastor Jason here. Honored you take the time to hit that play button and spend some time with us here, hearing God's word and hopefully being challenged, changed, and charged to move forward. This is week number 2 of the Abundant Life series. If you haven't checked out week number 1, you can pause right now, go back and check out Pastor Scott's message. We're looking at John chapter 10 and the idea of Jesus as a shepherd. Jesus as a shepherd and we as his sheep. It's a really important concept, and it finds itself all the way in the Old Testament. You can look at Ezekiel chapter 34 if you get some time later on after this message to go back and look at how God says, here's a good shepherd and here's a bad shepherd, and how I want to be the shepherd over you. So the idea of shepherd and sheep is something that maybe in 21st century terms we could look at it like this: leader, follower. So if Jesus, I believe in Jesus, I also have to allow Jesus to be my leader. That means that he chooses where I go, that he leads me according to his plan, and that I follow because I know and I trust the shepherd's heart that he has my best intentions for me. Now, here's the tricky part. Many times in our lives, we have followed someone and maybe given them our heart. We've given them tons of authority. We've allowed them either by choice or maybe not by choice. It's interesting that setting up in this context, when Jesus begins to speak about the shepherd, there's a lot of bad shepherding going on. A lot of bad leaders leading the nation of Israel. They're Pharisees and they're supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to be doing the right thing, and they're just not. They don't care about orphans and widows and this. They care about themselves. They care about wealth and looking good and fame and fortune, whatever you want to call it. That's what they're all about. And you know what? I think the modern church has been hurt by this many times, where someone is out to get something, and that's not a good shepherd. And so we kind of have this default where we think shepherding sheep, I don't know about all this. Well, you know what? I think you and I can have all experienced in some way a brokenness. But I want to tell you something. That's where Jesus defines himself as the good shepherd. And there's a reason that he's good. And I want to talk to you about that today and how that overrides and can help heal and can help restore and help bring health and abundant life to you through allowing him to be the good shepherd. Now, in my life, I remember a long time ago that I had this relationship and I was moving my way up. And I was excited about this position. So I gave this person the authority to speak into my life. I humbled my heart so I would hear and be teachable and everything else. And then one day everything went wrong, and I still can't tell you what went wrong. But here's what happened. I was brought into the office and a conversation ensued in which it was pretty normal, only to maybe about an hour later literally walk out of the office completely destroyed. What was said in that office is that I had the wrong intentions, that I was this. I mean, it was just defeat after defeat. It was almost like he took my heart out of my chest and just beat it up real bad and then gave it back to me. And I went home that night and I thought, what in the world just happened? But here's the thing that was in the back of my mind. How can I ever trust someone again? How can I trust a leader? How can I trust a person that I've done this? And so we become vulnerable, and that's the danger here. That's the danger, and that's what makes it really hard for us to trust God, because we want to associate Jesus with kind of leadership that we've seen, and that's not wise by any means. Imagine if it was your family. I know many of you today struggle and say, you know what, my mom or my dad or my brother or sister, they just didn't lead me well, and it hurts, and I get that. And I don't want to put that to the side, but I want to show you something important that I think we can pick up in the text today about a young man who had been led his whole life, whose parents kind of pushed him to the side. And then hear that, how Jesus works and calls himself a shepherd. I think we're going to find some reassurance. I think we're going to find some peace, and I think we're going to find some good news in context. So if you have your Bible, John chapter 9. This young man, born blind, is the start of chapter 9, running all the way through to chapter 10. There's this idea, this little boy, young man, I don't know how old he was, but he's of age, so I'm assuming he's over 12, and maybe he's 18, 19, we don't know. But this young man is born blind, which in that time meant that if you were born blind, man, your parents did something bad. You can see it in the text. Now, Jesus sees him, spits on the ground, makes this mud, this spittle kind of thing, puts it on his eyes and says, hey, man, if you want to go see, go to the pool of Siloam. Go there, and what I want you to do is I want you to wash it off. And so imagine just for a moment, this entire life, this young man has never seen his parents' family, or never seen his face. He's never seen a tree, a road, a mule, a donkey, whatever you want to say. He's never seen any of those things that are in his context around him, ever. So he cleans off his eyes, and the sight starts to restore, and pretty soon he's looking at buildings and this and this. One of the first things he meets is the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are the bad shepherds. Got the wrong intentions, and they're out to prove Jesus wrong. They're out to say, Jesus, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're saying. And you know what? You're deceptive, and you're healing people on the Sabbath, and all of this stuff is happening in John chapter 9. And then in verse 18, something interesting happens. This young man, they want answers. They're like, who did this? Who did this? Who did this? And just imagine, just for a moment, this is your first encounter, just in this moment of time. You've just received your sight, and bam, bad leadership, bad people, wanting the wrong thing, wrong intentions, all of this coming right into your face. And then, so who do you turn to? Man, you turn to those who lead you. You expect people to defend you during this time. And so think about it just for a moment. Who's going to defend this young man the most? His parents. They've been leading him around and helping him his whole life, and being blind specifically, probably taking him by the hand, taking him to the dinner table, taking him to wash, whatever it is, they have led him. So you would expect in some way that they would respond with allegiance and authority and really, really, really stand up for their son, but that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Verse 18. The Jews still not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. So we're going to find out the real story. This is either a hoax or these people are going to tell us the truth. And so what did his parents do? Verse 20. We know he is our son, his parents answered. We know he was born blind, but how he can see or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Okay, totally fine. So the leaders are coming to his parents and saying, hey, we want you to tell us what's up. Was he blind? Yes, he was blind. Do you know who did this? No, we don't. That's the story in a nutshell. Then it turns. They said this, but how he came to see, we don't know. Ask him, he is of age. Wait a minute. Wait. You mean to tell me just for a moment there that they had an opportunity to say, you know what, we'll go with you, we'll help, we'll do this. And so what's happening here, John doesn't leave us hanging at all. He says, here's what's really happening. And he says, he is of age, he will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. You ever think just for a moment how much fear plays into our lives? I know as a parent, I feared what other people thought. And so sometimes I would make poor choices and I would allow something, hey, I'd kind of give in. Or maybe I thought, man, if my kids could just do this and then we'll feel better and they'll have a great life. And really as a leader, I failed in so many ways because I was fearful of what other people thought or fearful of some negative circumstance or consequence of what took place. Now, here's the interesting part of this story. What Jesus does is he's sitting here and he's aware of this because he's the one who's healed this person. So his intentions for this young man are that he would have abundant life, that he would be healed. Jesus came into his life and took him from blind to seeing, kind of like you and me, that we were blind and now we see, but maybe sometimes what we see is bad leadership and Jesus really wants us to see him. So our focus is off. So the parents keep going on. They said, his parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for already the Jews had decided anyone who acknowledged Jesus was the Christ will be put out of the synagogue. So here's the deal. They said, we don't want to deal with this right now because we don't want to get kicked out of the church, the synagogue. So why don't you go deal with him? He's old enough to deal with this stuff himself. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What kind of leadership is that? Now, if that's my leadership and that's my shepherd and that's who I'm following, imagine the ramifications and the hurt that go along with that. And that's why you and I sometimes, for situations like this, we have a really hard time saying, Jesus is my shepherd. He's my good shepherd, because our minds are full of past hurts and brokenness and the people we love the most. So, you know what, Jesus, I know you love me. I've never seen you face to face, and I've never held your hand, and I know and I trust, and you've given me this faith. But man, I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of residue of hurt in my heart. And so think about it just for a moment. He's sitting there, and Jesus is hearing this, and he knows all these bad people. So when Jesus starts John 10, he is saying to the people, I am different. I am not like them. And that's how you and I have to look at this text. The reason I went back and shared that with you is because it hit me like a ton of bricks. Talk about getting sold out. Talk about lack of trust. I think that's where we fail, is we want to trust Jesus kind of how we trust other people. And when they let us down, we're just waiting at any moment for him to let us down as well. Well, here's the good news. It's not going to happen. He is the good shepherd, and that's why he says this. And the way he says it is so important, and I want to show you why this is important. So imagine the scene. Bad leadership, Pharisees, set of parents that didn't do so hot, a young man that's just got his eyesight back. There's a whole lot of people gathering around, and Jesus is going after it, and he says, here's the deal. A thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that you might have life to the full. So he sets it up in verse 11, chapter 10. He says this. What does he say? He says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Listen to this, friends. Jesus is not like other leaders. Jesus is God. And so when he says the I am, this is one of 7 you can find in John. He says, I am the bread of life. I am the gate. I am the way, the truth, and the life in John 14. And he says right here, I am the good shepherd. And what he's saying is he says, I am God. John is extremely convinced that Jesus is God. That's why he starts off John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So it's so important that we get this. And so what is he saying? He says, you know what? In this world, you're going to have trouble. In this world, you're going to get hurt. In this world, you're going to have people let you down. And it may be as close as your parents. It may be as close as someone that you dearly loved, a friend for life, and they let you down. But he won't. And here's why we call him the Good Shepherd. And this is how you can have abundant life. When you take these truths and you place them in your heart and you ask God to give you the faith to believe them. That's right. Give you the faith to believe them. So here's what he says. He says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Here's the difference between Jesus and everyone else. A lot of people can provide for you finance, leadership, all kinds of things like that. Maybe job, food, you name it. They can do that, but they can never provide for you eternal life. Jesus said, I came because I was going to give my life so that you may have full life, which means this. I'm going to give you my life in exchange. I'm going to lay it down as the shepherd. And what I'm going to do in return for that, what I'm going to give to you is this, the freedom of never having to fear death, to never have to fear loss, or to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that my life is in his hands. Unbelievably important. So he lays down his life for his sheep. That's the difference, that he's proven this. That's why Jesus said in John 15:13, he said, greater love has no man than this, and he laid down his life for his friends. Check out friends and put sheep. Did he lay down his life for his sheep? That's what he did for you. You've got to hold on to that, and you've got to appreciate that, because that is key. That is such an important element of our lives, is to understand he is God, that he is the shepherd, and he has proven his authority through defeating death, through his obedience to the cross, and by his blood, he has purchased us, which makes the next part really important. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So there's the compare and contrast. But look at the word own. You know what he's saying? He's not saying, hey man, I bought you with some money. No, he's saying, I created you. Do you know that God created you with a purpose and a plan? That it's more than just living this life and getting as much stuff as you can, that he has a purpose and he wants you in his flock, that if you believe, it's because he's brought you into that fold. Imagine that just for a minute. How important that is for you and I to understand that God's leadership is not like the world. And that's why when he says, I'm the good shepherd, you and I have to embrace that fully, but then also understand that through that, he's saying, I didn't randomly acquire you. It's my intention that I have you. That is incredible. Because what it says to me is this, is that God cares, that he knew me. This is where the Psalms come in, that he knit me together in my mother's womb. Psalm 139, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well, that there is not a mistake. You are not a mistake. That God has taken you, that he has not only provided leadership from you, that he knew about the day that maybe you were sold out, or some leader, some shepherd that you had given authority to broke your heart, let you down, a mom or dad that was supposed to do something didn't do it. He knows about it, and that's why he laid down his life, and that's why he wants you to follow him so he can bring healing to your life. So important. So important that you grasp that. So what does he do? He says, I own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, this other guy, he abandons the sheep. Do you know what that means? It means that this guy's got no vested interest. Now think about that for a moment. How many people in your life really, really have a vested interest in you? You know, we talk about relationship, we talk about this, but Jesus is saying, I have a very vested relationship in you, so much so that I find joy in spending time with you. I find joy in laying down my life for you. I find joy in redeeming you and placing you in my flock. And so then what does he say? He says this incredible thing. Basically, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not like them. You know, that person that left you, that person that was a friend for so many years, they left you. That's not Jesus. He will never leave you nor forsake you. He promises that. You can take that to the bank. I am not going to abandon you. Do not allow those past experiences or brokenness or all those things to determine how you follow Jesus, because he will never, ever, ever let you down. Now, you may be saying, hey, Pastor, I'm sitting here right now and I feel so far away from God. My mom used to tell me this. She used to say, hey, Jason, if God feels far away, guess who moved? Maybe it's you. And you're not allowing him to be the shepherd in your life. You're not following. You're kind of doing your own thing and then wanting him to bless it. And I think that's what a lot of these guys were doing back in the New Testament. These shepherds just were looking the part. But you know what? We want to be the part. We want to be in love with Jesus and connected to him fully. So take that challenge and move with it. Move close to him, because the next one gives us the fullness of how Jesus is the good shepherd. Then the wolf attacks and the flock scatters. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I want you to hear this. He tells us to cast all our anxieties on him because he cares for us. And when he cares for us, I want you to hear this because it's so wonderful, so beautiful, that he doesn't run away from you when you sin or you mess up or something broken happens. He doesn't run away from you. You know what he does? He runs to you. See, the good shepherd is not like that person that let you down. I cannot repeat this enough. He's not like that. And I know in my life, there's been so many times that I've messed up and tried to associate or assume or think, or man, this person let me down, this person. And pretty soon you can have this anticipatory anxiety. Something's going to go wrong soon. No. You can set that aside with Christ. It's not going to happen that way. It's not going to be that way. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be you learning to trust more and more, because the shepherd wants to protect you. He wants to provide for you. But you know what? You got to stay close to the shepherd. If you're out wandering around, the scripture tells us he'll go get you. But listen, wander home. Get home. Get back in the flock where you need to be. Get back in that place where you are hearing from the people of God. Get back in that place where you're deciding to be led by the good shepherd. I promise you right now, with everything that I have for this text, everything that is said in this, you can take to the bank. He will never leave you nor forsake you. He will not abandon you. He will not run from you. He will run to you. And so just as we close, I want you to take all those thoughts of bad leadership and present them to him. And I don't want to minimize hurt and brokenness, and some of us have been hurt in incredible ways that no one will ever know. But I don't ever want us to make the mistake of associating God's leadership with human leadership. He is the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, and he has a plan for you that is absolutely incredible. So today, enjoy being in his flock. Enjoy allowing him to lead. Give him the authority. Humble your heart. Hear his voice. Turn from your sin. Do those things that God has. And you know what? You will have abundant life. Abundant life not only today, trusting and believing and knowing I'm not my own, but also for eternity. And that's the good news. And that's why you and I can say consistently and with belief and faith, he is the good shepherd, the good shepherd, the God shepherd, the one who takes away the sins of the world, the one who loves you more than you ever know. Be blessed in a mighty way, and may you trust him. Trust him with all of your heart.